Jane was sitting up on the banister, like the railing, and it broke. And I'm standing like right next to her, and she starts to fall back like into the river. And she reaches forward and just like grabs what she describes as like a hand.
Oh
And
my, wow. More shivers.
I saw it with my eyes. I see her grab onto this like physical thing and pull herself up. And she doesn't fall into the river. And who knows what would have happened. But so
This is real shit. This is really cool. Welcome to Emerge. I'm Feeny, a breathwork teacher and somatic guide, and each week I share unfiltered conversations with people who've turned challenge into transformation. Come for the stories, stay for the wisdom, and leave with practices to support your own healing and growth. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoy this episode with Lucy Shelby. She is a trained spiritual psychosomatic coach, clown, healer, and artist. So she holds an MFA in an ensemble-based physical theatre, as well as many certificates in various healing modalities, and has been teaching hot yoga for 18 plus years. She's a writer, producer, and creator of many shows in New York City and beyond. One of her proudest achievements was working with Clowns Without Borders, performing for over 10,000 plus children in Ecuador and Zimbabwe. I love this episode with Lucy, who I met on my silent retreat recently. She shares stories from her mystical childhood experiences, which was so interesting to hear. And we explore many different things, such as the balance between spirituality and embodiment. And we also discuss the very huge importance of boundaries, as well as authenticity, and how to integrate spiritual practices into everyday life. So I really love this one. She is such a special soul. I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Lucy.
thank you.
Those watching, we're celebrating with our movements. And to those listening and watching, I just have to say before we kind of get into it that Lucy and I met on a silent retreat with our teacher Angel. So on the silent retreat, we spoke a little bit at the beginning, didn't we? But then we all went into silence. And although we were deep in our processes, we also really did communicate when it came to like meal times, and we developed a particular way of communicating. And which was mostly strange sounds, which I think you described, well, you did describe as the land of the happy monks, where I believe I would like to live full time. To everyone listening, that is where we met. And it was very special because although we didn't actually have that much time to speak, I felt like we kind of all developed a really close bond, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like we did. So first thing that I would love to kind of say, I feel like is a good place to start, is that one of the things you said to me was, or that you wrote to me, was that you had a real connection to mysticism and healing from quite a young age.
Mhm.
And it's not something that kind of came later on in life as it actually did for me. So I would love to hear, open it up, open the floor to, yeah, a little bit about your experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of funny, but one of my earliest memories is I think I was maybe 7 or 8, and my sister, I'm very close with her, she's, like, maybe 5 years older, and my uncle Mel had this collection of Barbara Streisand videos. Do you know Barbara Streisand? That's a
I
very
love
American.
it.
Okay, so she had this film she was in where she, like, got hypnotized and tapped into her past lives,
Oh, wow, yeah.
and so it was kind of this first introduction to, like, "Oh, wow, maybe there's something more than just this life or this world, this experience," and she turned into, I think she was, like, Cleopatra or, like, some Egyptian goddess. It was an amazing film. Um
What's it called, you know?
I have no idea. I could probably find it. Then so my sister, when she was little, she had a baby blanket and she called it God. like the name of her baby blanket.
Wow, that is really
I know. She was like, and were born one day apart. And she was actually born like at 11:58 on July 8th. So the doctor asked my mom, like, do you want the baby now or like today or tomorrow? And my mom's like, now, and so she came on the 8th and I came on the 9th. And
Mm.
then we were both due on July 7th, which
Wow.
is the day that my uncle passed. So it's like all these kind of mystical things.
Yeah.
And then growing up, Jane and I used to do things like I don't know if you ever played that game where you would like pretend to cut open and fill your body with sand and rocks.
No,
It was it's
I don't
American.
know that game.
And then when you would sit up, you would feel really heavy. It
Oh,
was
okay.
it was
Okay.
wild. And so that was like kind of, it was a similar like light as a feather, stiff as a board kind of
Mm. Yeah.
things. And then Jane used to she took that game and then she would like imagine like this sounds so violent, but it wasn't like that. It was like she was like cutting me open and she would take out like weird energy. So we were doing like this weird energy work when we were kids, but not even really knowing that's what we were doing. And then my sister also just had a very I mean, we grew up we're in a religion that we would talk a lot about angels and angels
Mm.
being like um thoughts and like just very present. And my sister had this experience once where we were all sitting outside and she looked up. There was this woman and she goes, excuse me, excuse me. She goes to my mom, like, Mom, there's like this lady. And
Mm.
my mom's like keeps talking and the lady's like, excuse me, excuse me. And my mom's not paying attention to her. So finally my sister looks at the woman and is like, yes. And she goes, that the little girl is climbing out the window. And my sister looks up and my little cousin was like 2 and had like 1 foot, like she was playing and I guess the screen was open. So Jane ran up and gets her, then comes back down and is like, Mom, did you see that woman? Mom's like, what do you, there was no woman. Yeah.
Wow. I've got tingles
I know.
all over my body.
I know.
All over.
I know. And then this other time I was with my sister, I was like 12 or 13. She was, a teenager, and we would go to this ranch in Wyoming. My godparents ran this ranch and we would both babysit for the guests, like to make money. And we were sitting, we were at on this it was like these wooden cabins, and one was on this river.
Mhm.
And Jane was sitting up on the banister, like the railing, and it broke. And I'm standing like right next to her and she starts to fall back like into the river and she reaches forward and just like grabs what she describes as like a hand.
Oh
And
my, wow. More shivers.
I saw it with my eyes. I see her grab onto this like physical thing and pull herself up, and she doesn't fall into the river. And who knows what would have happened, but so
This is real shit. This is really cool.
yeah, so like since I was young, there was these experiences and like, and then have you ever heard of the book? I didn't really mean to go down this road, but Many Lives, Many Masters.
Yes, I have. I read it years ago.
Yeah, so I read that book maybe 2007 or 2008. It was like all those experiences were happening and I was very into different mystical, but I hadn't discovered yoga or
Mm.
meditation really. I didn't have that kind of access. But then once I got into my 20s, I got into yoga and then started meeting people who like gave me that book, Many Lives, Many Masters. And I was like, that like, and then, um, Have you ever heard of Doreen Virtue?
No, I don't think so.
She's the angel card lady, and she was kind of really big, like, in the late 2010s with Hay House, and do you know
Oh,
Louise Hay?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so, like, those people and, like, Wayne Dyer and Eckhart
Mhm.
Tolle, like,
Yeah.
all these people were getting introduced to me, but then Doreen Virtue had this book on angels and how to talk to your angels,
Mm.
and also, like, how to talk to people or spirits that had passed,
Mm.
um and so I just kind of started doing that, like, talking to I remember one apparently Archangel Michael is good for motorized vehicles. There's, like, other things, like, she would get, like, really specific, like
Oh my god, I'll remember that.
and one time my car wouldn't start, and I, like, asked Archangel Michael, and then, like, my car started, and I was like, "Oh my god," like,
I need to know that. Okay.
I I mean, then I went to Peru for this yoga training, and I had this very full-on experience with someone in my life who had passed, and, like, their
Goodness.
spirit came to me, and I've always been very interested in, like, connecting, I guess, with angels or the other side or, like, signs,
Mm.
and then that brought me into I ended up going to New Zealand to teach yoga. The woman I met in Peru, she was also on the training. She owned a studio in New Zealand, so she asked me to come there, and one
Cool.
of my students there, she was like this like a literal fairy of a woman, and she lived on the cliffs in, in New Zealand, had this, like, energy healing center. And
Wow.
I just loved her, and I would go and just study with her. And she
Mhm.
was like, would teach me how to feel the energy in people and like kind of move blocks. And there's that book called Healing Hands. You ever heard of that?
No, but should I read it?
I think so. Yeah. So I just like kept having these mystical experiences but also having really chaotic experience. Like, it was
Just
both.
okay. So, what was going on with the chaotic experiences? What comes to mind when you talk about those?
Well, I feel like this, like, being so open
Mm.
without real understanding of boundaries and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and,
Seen that.
like and, and also, like, I came from a bit of chaos in my upbringing, but also, like, my mom is so full of wonder and magic,
Mm.
and, like, growing up, she would do things like for my birthday, she had my sisters hide under a bridge, like, not with lots of water, it was like a little bridge, and, we went fishing, and they would put little treats on our hook, like, little surprises, so everything was, like, very magical and, like but then there also was, like, kind of not really okay, I'll give you an example, like, when I moved to New York City,
Mhm.
because I was so open, I got a stalker, like, literally someone was stalking me be because but it was like, he would walk me to the subway, and then I just didn't know how to say no, and so
Oh.
I was like, "Okay," and then, like
Come home with me.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah, and then he's like, "Can I have your phone number?" And I didn't wanna lie, so
Oh,
I gave
yes.
it to him, and there was it was like this openness coupled with naivete, and
Mm.
it's like the fairy tale. It's like freaking what's her
Yeah.
name? Little Red Riding Hood, you know? She ends up in the wolves' cabin.
Yeah, I do really resonate with that. I feel like I think it's, when you're trusting and you're warm and you see good in the world and you see good in people, and actually it can be sometimes a bit dangerous. Plus, of course, having very few boundaries, which is kind of very similar to me of like, I was very interesting and then also didn't want to say no, didn't want to make someone upset, didn't want to feel. And then before you know it, you get yourself into situations such as having a stalker, right?
Yeah, or like yeah, just not in great conditions, and it's interesting too because the spiritual community, it's so different now because there's this like kind of wellness thing and it's become an industry, like
Yeah.
before we were all just like, it was because even like my teacher, I'm originally a Bikram yoga teacher.
Mm,
He, and I know there's a lot of controversy around that guy, but when he came over, he was offering yoga for free, and,
mm,
like, he literally Shirley MacLaine, who's another actress, like, it's like, "You
mm.
can't, you have to charge," you know?
Yeah.
So it's like that was in the '70s, '80s, so it's like the wellness industry is a new concept. Before we were all just like, "Okay, we're not monks or nuns, like, the church isn't supporting us," but I feel strange, like, commodifying or
Yeah.
monetizing these sacred ancient thing. Because even, like, I learned how to do this energetic healing, but I don't have a certificate. There was no training. I
Mm,
just, like, was hanging out with this fairy lady in her magic
yeah.
wonderland.
For it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's what it should be, and really. And but now everything, yeah, as you say, has to be commodified, or everything has to be wrapped up in like something to do with a governing body or whatever. And actually, to really learn kind of true mysticism or whatever it might be that's related to that is not really about certificates and being attached to a governing body or whatever. But it's interesting even calling it, it's like the wellness industry. It's so weird that it's like all this kind of spiritual industry. So it's so weird that it's an industry because it shouldn't be really, but wherever money can be made, money will be made in this world.
And it's interesting to think about boundaries because that's where you kind of start to create, like, money is a form of energetic boundary,
Yeah.
like
Is an is an important exchange as well so that you do it's a challenging one, isn't it? Because it's like you want to also honor your own time and your own gifts in a world which is, kind of money is the currency, right? Or
yeah.
like it or not. So it is a challenging one. I definitely found it hard when I first went into breath work of like, oh, I don't really want to chart like I shouldn't be charging for this because it's not like investment banking or like private equity or one of those things where those people just care about money, like we don't care about money, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so interesting. Well, have you ever seen the musical Hair?
I've heard of it and I I think I know what it's about, but I'm not sure I've seen it. So yeah,
It's
maybe I haven't seen it.
it's like all about the hippies in the '70s, '60s, in the Vietnam War and all the things, and
Mm.
my mother showed that movie to me when I was, like 10, and I all I wanted to be was a hippie. Like, I would be a hippie for Halloween every year, and like but there's this song in Hair that basically is like the main guy is all about free love and, loving, but he's neglecting his he got this woman pregnant and he's like neglecting that relationship. And so it already was starting this dicey understanding or relationship to how do we be these open, free, wild, mystical beings and have responsibility and integrity and like
Totally.
and boundaries and and all of these things. So that was, if I look at my life, I guess, and from that frame, I'm like, oh, that's what I was exploring. And
Mhm.
it's so messy, you know.
Yeah, it's messy, and it's interesting because what I think when you're talking about that, it's like it just reminds me when I used to I mean, no offense to anyone and probably no guys listen to this anyway, but, no offense to any guys listening who are kind of, really spiritual. But yeah, the kind of the most spiritual guys I've dated, I think we might have spoken about this, are
Yeah.
genuinely 2 or 3 worst people I've ever dated, like, so disconnected, kind of like spiritual fuckboys, like completely not embodying what they're saying and what they're doing all the meditation, they're doing all the breath work, they're doing something. You're like, but where is the embodiment of all of these things that you're doing? How is that coming to your relationships? And I'm not saying that all men are like that by any means, who are kind of but that has actually been my experience of more quote unquote spiritual, such a big word. What does it mean? Guys. And actually now I think also with you, I know we've discussed is like the men we have, the partners we have are, you wouldn't consider them. They don't have the like spiritual language and do all the things, but actually they are incredibly embodied. They do what they say what they're going to do. They're very loving. They're very joyful. All these things, which actually really is embodies a lot of what these texts and these lineages talk about, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I just on the topic of relationships, like, I did so many. Have you ever heard of the book Calling in the One? Like, if there's any spiritual book about relationships, some, like, method, I did it. Or lo
That's
you
great.
know
You should start your own course. Sell it for loads of money.
and I always, like, imagine this man. I thought we'd be going to yoga together, and I even had that with some people, and my man that I am with now, who I love dearly, is like, we have not gone to a yoga class together, but I feel like he just naturally meditates. It's so I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm just, like, being here." Or, like, sometimes I'll be like, "What are you thinking about?" He's like, "I'm just watching the lights." And I'm like or, like, he works with the plant. He loves his plants, or, like, these practices that, like, I feel like I've been seeking and trying to do.
Yeah.
It's and it's been really beautiful because I think that that's I'm not trying to shit on the spiritual world. I appreciate it and I love, but it's like, I think, well, to, like, loop it into the somatic work, I think it's really important to have that integration, because,
Yeah.
and for me, that's seeing real people. And,
Mm.
like, I think sometimes I could get in this place of, like, I'm so out there and amazing and living the real life,
Mhm.
and, like, you schmucks are just, like, going to your 9 to 5 and blah, 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 but I think as I've gotten older, I'm like, "Oh, I'm actually finding reverence and respect for people." That's literally part of the work even, like, chop wood, carry water,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
doing the I mean, a lot of people I know are living kind of unhealed. Maybe they could use some extra resources, but, like,
Yeah.
the people who are living a life and happy with their life and not necessarily need to go to a breath class
Mm.
are so fascinating to me because I'm like, these are tools. They're not necessary to the way to enlightenment,
Exactly. Yeah.
And when we start to think that we need something specific or you need something specific, it
Mm.
just points out how maybe unenlightened I am.
Oh, yeah, oh my god. I have to say, at the beginning of my relationship, I was, like, trying to get him to do all of the things, like, "Come to this, you need this," and, like, getting so frustrated, and then I realized, I was like, "What am I doing?" I'm like, "This is totally not what I'm doing is like the opposite of spiritual." He has his path, I have mine. Like, who am I to say, "Oh, well, do this breathwork class and you're going to be spiritual"? It doesn't work like that. And it's interesting how we go through these phases, isn't it? And I definitely more at the beginning of my kind of journey, I would say some of these words I use, I'm like, but I think I was very, yeah, as kind of alluding to what you say, like pretty judgmental about things and how other people live their lives and being a bit holier than thou, whatever. And actually, yeah, that's really not it, is it? That's the opposite of what it is. And
Really?
I'm not to say I do not judge people, because I think as a human, it's very natural. And if you just walked around and didn't judge anyone, then you are probably enlightened. And yeah, that's really cool, but that's not where I'm at. And that's not where most people are at. But yeah, I think kind of just accepting that everyone's on their own path, and I think that's been very helpful in my relationship as well, because it's like, actually, and same with you and your partner as well. It's like they've got their own thing going on. It's kind of working really well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and judgment is actually or, like, I think that's one of the major I don't know what they're called, in the tarot deck. I think we've been conditioned to think that to be spiritual, we have to be non-judgmental and open, and I think that's not true. We need to have discernment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not and I have to decipher for myself, like, there's the judgment that's not discerning, it's just, like, me looking and saying, "You're doing it wrong." You know, like, I feel like that's the judgment you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
But, like, I think that was an interesting moment for me to be like, "Wait, I can be spiritual or loving and have a boundary," or I mean, it all comes back to that. I can say no, or I can say with love, "Please step away from me."
Yeah.
You know? This yeah, yeah.
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 Yeah, totally.
Well, I just had another memory of, talking about, like, people who aren't necessarily spiritual, but are, like, actually
Mhm.
very spiritual. I just saw my godfather a couple weeks ago in Colorado, and I was telling him that I remember when I was little, we would, like, sit together, and he's like, "Just close your eyes and, like, see what colors you see or what you
Mm,
see basically behind your eyelids," you know?
that's cool.
And I remember just sitting there with him and, like, kind of seeing the designs or what so I was sharing that with him, and then he tells me that he started doing that, and now he'll have these, like, full-on visions, and it's just, like, this practice that he's been doing for years, and he was like, "I don't try to have it go anywhere or expect anything," and I was
Mm.
just, like, laughing because 'cause I'm like, "That's meditate,"
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the path, like, having no expectations, but, like, showing up and being open, and then he described this wild journey he had, especially this one time, and then my partner, Jose, was there with me, and I was like we both of our minds were just, like, blown, and I was like, "Wow, this is what he was teaching me when I was, like, a little girl," you know?
That's so
And yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, without being like, "Hey, man, I meditate all the time." It's like he's got his whole thing going on, which is absolutely meditation without yeah. He
Yeah.
found his own way, which is so cool. Um, kind of along a similar vein to what we've just been talking about. I remember you saying that you used to think, or people assumed that because you're like a joyful person, that
Mm,
you didn't have the depth, perhaps, which really resonated with me because for lots of reasons. But the thing that first comes up is that I remember when I first started teaching breath work, and I was like trying to show up online, and you'd see all these like really zen, like peaceful women with really sort of quiet, even tones and voices. And I really tried to be like that. I was like, that's what I need to be like, because otherwise I'm not spiritual or I'm not like, I'm not a proper breathwork teacher, so to be silly or to be joyful or to like kind of lose your serenity and just like suddenly speak really quickly or gesticulate loads
yeah.
is, I used to feel like those two worlds kind of couldn't coexist. I feel like that's a similar thing to what you were saying, but in a different way.
Oh, 100%. Like, I mean, and it's interesting, the teachers that I love the most are the ones that aren't the perfect,
Mhm.
like, I have this one teacher who's a writing teacher. She's also a channel, and she's so incredible. She's not perfect in any like she'll be like, "Oh my god, I forgot," blah blah, blah, or like, and it's like, I mean, and I found that too with a lot of people that I thought were, or I would be like, "Oh, they're going to be really spiritual or they're the silliest ones." Like, and that's I think what I was starting to tell you. There's even this role in certain native cultures. It's called the Hyoka, and it's
Mhm.
a spiritual clown. It's like the sacred clown. And so the Hyoka, I don't know that much, so I'm like, don't quote me on it, but like they work together with the shaman or that archetype of the shaman, or even to think of like a modern day reference, if you think of the Lion King and
Yeah.
the monkey,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's like the wild, silly, crazy, but the
Yeah.
most wise shaman, essentially, or
Yeah.
seer. And then Shakespeare even had the fool
Mm.
was actually the one who knew what was happening, really, like in I think it's King Lear, but a lot of them. So this
Mhm.
role, this character of the fool, I mean, it's also in tarot, is
Mm. Yeah.
is actually the wisest one. And I guess to answer your question too, it's like to get to that level of, I guess, freedom, silliness, there is a lot of depth to work through, so that you feel free. For me, I've been like, I do have like a natural silliness, and my parents are really cultivate that, but like I've always thought that I needed to be the serious one. But then I've started to
Mm.
realize, like, oh, those people sometimes are a little bit more insecure because they're trying to keep it in this
Yeah.
perfect, and some people aren't at all, but sometimes when you're really trying to keep it perfect, it's because you don't want to go out of the lines and
Yeah.
be caught.
Completely. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I know that you're obviously a very joyful person and you're so amazing to be around, but I know that it's not always kind of been like that for you. And there have been periods of like really dark times
Mhm.
for you. Obviously, completely share what you want to share and leave what you don't. But is there, I guess, how do those two kind of work together for you? Do you feel like the joy, I guess, when you can only feel joy to the extent that you can feel the real shit in many ways, right? So it's like I feel the same. I feel like I've been to some very dark times, but I feel like the joy that I can feel is just like, I could almost touch the sky with how great I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just from those words, just whatever comes through for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like it's not so linear. I mean, there has been like very
Mm.
specific
Really
darker
is.
times, but I think what's interesting too is some of the times where I've been my kind of externally, like what seems like my
Mhm.
happiest or joyous or silliest, I've been my most depressed, like when I'm
Mhm.
back in my home by myself. And I think that I don't know why um, well, I mean, like Robin Williams, you think about Robin Williams or a lot of these like very bright characters struggled with darker periods or depression. And I don't really know why that is, but I know for myself, I think it's also creating those boundaries or the safety, because I think one
Mhm.
thing I've learned in like the somatic work is the more we create containment or safety in our
Mm.
bodies, then the bigger we can expand
Yeah.
without the like full collapse, you know?
Yeah.
And I think before I just really didn't have those tools. And I told you this, I've been sober for eight
Mm.
and a half years. And that was one thing. I was such a party girl. I love to party, and just be like completely wrecked. I was like a blackout drunk. So I would go wild. Always like,
I can relate.
yeah. And just like I loved it. I loved it. And so then it's been really beautiful getting sober and then continuing to do this work. It's like
Yeah.
I almost had to rewild myself because
Good.
like I had
Ah,
to go all the way in to like not like I wasn't allowed to have any fun, but kind of bring myself fully back. And then I even went through a period of I don't know if I even believe in God or all of
right.
this woo-woo stuff is just like total bullshit. It's just like crazy and unhinged, insane people do this, you know? Like I went through that whole just looking around at the spiritual community and being like, everyone is unhinged and unsafe. And that was part of the like then bouncing the other way,
Mm,
and then
yeah. I
yeah,
feel like
going
you need to do that sometimes, right? Like that does seem to be like I sort of did that and I now actually do drink a bit, but more like not that often. But I went through a period of like going the other way and like I never want to go out. I was doing like really long practices and not really seeing anyone and just really going into that. And then as a sort of like result of going so hard on the partying, like, always the last person up at the after party, like, every festival you could go to, I was there, like doing all of the concoctions of everything. And yeah, sometimes life, you need to go kind of to the extreme, don't you? And then you kind of come somewhere a bit in the middle.
in the middle, yeah, and it's this like and it was important for me to realize that like I mean, that's what we learn in meditation, that it's not about being just like peaceful, it's about being
Yeah.
present with whatever's coming through, whatever crazy techno music is playing next door
Which
or
we
like
had on rates,
yeah.
the Balinese people were, raving at 8 a.m. pretty much every day.
And like that's okay too. And I guess one other thing I was gonna say is that I mean, because when I struggled with the depression and that darkness, like a big thing that would come up for me was like suicide ideation and wanting to like leave the planet. And I think that I always felt this interesting relationship to it because it wasn't like I wanted to just kill myself. It was like my soul was like, nope, I made a bad choice. Like I
Mm.
wasn't supposed to come here. Like, can we go back home? And so I feel like a lot of the embodiment work has helped my spirit or my soul feel safe on this
Wow.
planet, and be like, it's okay, we're here. Like,
Yeah.
okay, we're doing this life thing. Like,
Yeah.
it can feel really scary and weird. Yeah, so it was like creating safety for my soul to be like, okay, we are here. We're gonna do this.
Wow. That's like one of the most powerful things I've heard in a while. That was really thank you for sharing that. It was really amazing. And, I've never heard anyone talk like that. It's such an interesting way of viewing it. And it sounds like because you're such a spiritual, tapped in, intuitive person, the somatic work is really, really something that has just been so wonderful for you to kind of really ground in this body, in this life. It's safe to be here. That's just really powerful. And I think a lot of people would really benefit from the somatic work. I mean, I think everyone would, but it's just a case of, yeah, how can we get more people doing it. But yeah, that's really and how do you think that was the main thing that helped you move through what you're experiencing then? Was it mainly the body stuff, the somatics, or were there other things as well that kind of helped you?
Um, well, I think it's hard to really know. I mean, I think getting sober for
Mm,
me was like I needed to take care of that piece because I couldn't get into the deeper healing work if I was still drinking. And the interesting thing about drinking or alcohol is we call it spirits. So
mm,
when I was going to this place of blackout, in a sense, I'm like just opening my vessel, my body to the
mm.
spirits.
Yeah.
and there's not necessarily a discernment there of what kind of energies are
Mhm.
coming in. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, I did have this energy healer tell me once, like, she's never seen someone with so many holes in her aura, like in my aura, which I
Right.
felt was a little rude. I was
Oh, yeah, you've got to kind of sugarcoat that a little bit for people.
like, easy. But like it is interesting, this idea. So for me in particular, I needed to stop just like opening, and it's not just with alcohol, but like in general, like I have to make more, yeah, discernment. Some people are
Mm,
opposite. They need to open more, and
yeah.
maybe take a little bit more risks. But for me, I think the coming back and then like getting into my body was a very real, clear
Mm,
way of, I guess, bringing my energy back in.
mhm.
I don't, yeah. Have you worked with Rachel Pringle?
I haven't, but I feel like I have just because I hear a lot about her and I watch a lot of her stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
I mean, I did this breath retreat with her where there was a lot of like screaming and
Mm,
raging and moving, and that was really, really helpful.
mhm,
I think the internal family systems has been like incredibly helpful
mm,
for me.
yeah.
I mean, there's so many things. It's so interesting to pinpoint, but
Yeah.
the movement stuff, like the work with Angel, just like even those one-on-one sessions, is like not knowing how to feel my feelings. So then
Yeah.
I would want to just like numb out in different ways.
Yeah.
And so the somatic work kind of helped me start to identify, even if it was just sensation,
Mhm.
which helped me identify, like, oh, like a certain type of feeling, or creating space so I could allow grief to move through, or whatever it needed to move through.
And also with parts work, it's helped me have so much more compassion for myself and the different parts of me and why I do the things that I do. Did you find that true as well? I know you're nodding.
Parts work is like, maybe because I have such a big imagination, like it just
Mhm.
works for me. I love it so much. I mean, I know people might not fully know what it is, but part of it is essentially talking to the different parts within you, and they all have different roles. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like, because what I've been learning recently too is like there's these protectors,
Mm.
and those are the parts that are protecting us from those deeper feelings, because if we go too deep, then sometimes we have to activate our firefighters, and those
Yeah.
are the ones that get us binge drinking or eating or
Yeah.
binging the Instagram, whatever. And
Yeah.
so if we can create a relationship with our protectors so they feel safe and
Mm.
heard, then they'll kind of trust and be like, "Okay, we believe like that your core self
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
hold this."
They don't have to come and like fight and run the show and blow your whole life up.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
feel like, okay, right, it's safer with things are okay. Yeah. I mean, to anyone who's interested in parts work, I might do in like a solo episode on that or something because it's so powerful and like we need a whole episode on that, right? Parts work. But yeah, it's very powerful work and it's something that was included as well with both of our trainings with Angel, right? Our somatic
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
So I feel like there are so many more things we can touch on. There's so many different like things I want to ask you, but as always, I have to try and like, you know, bring it slightly to a close. But what I like to what I like to ask guests at the end is well, actually one of two questions. So maybe you can choose which one you want to. I never normally give the choice, but you can choose which you'd like. So it's
Okay.
either just to make it kind of practical for listeners, who might want to try something. So like a practice that you use or is powerful for you that's just kind of quite simple that either kind of helps you connect your body or to spirit or whatever. Or I also like to ask if you could give your younger self a message or one of your younger selves a message, what might it be? So What kind of what do you feel is something you wanna connect to?
Well, maybe I'll kind of combine the two. And I think a practice that's really helpful is essentially giving yourself a moment to root down. Like, so
Mhm,
you just literally close your eyes and then feel, you can imagine like a literal root or a rope,
mhm,
like a strong rope moving down, down, down into the earth, past the soil,
mhm,
like the concrete, whatever you're sitting on, all the way down to the soil, all the way down to like that
mhm,
molten core in the center of the earth and that strong fire and energy. So, like connecting, so you're really rooted into the earth. And then you can imagine your crown, the top of your head, essentially opening. And I had someone say this to me recently, like the sun star, the sun, the light and the so connecting, the deeper we can connect into the earth, the more we can expand into the light, into the
mm,
sun. And then that's beautiful. But if you want to expand, then you can even
mm,
imagine like all the directions in front of
mm,
you, behind you, the two sides, just really opening. But then that protective
mm,
bubble of light that's like containing and holding your energy. So, like, you're
mm,
fully expanded, but then you're also protected. And I think that's what I would maybe have told my younger self. Like, you can
mm.
go be as free as you want, but also put that protection
Yeah,
and
and make
call
sure
in that discernment.
yeah, oh my god, I was kind of like I wasn't sure whether you actually that was you were meant to be guiding it or not, but I was really I was kinda dropped in. That's really powerful, and yeah, so hopefully people will enjoy that, and yeah, you kind of, aced it because you did 2 in 1, so you nailed it. So, I wanna tell people where they can find you and how they can work with you, where they can watch your stuff.
Okay. I mean, I have a website, it's lucyshelby.com. I am also a writer, so if you wanna be a part of my newsletter that it's mostly comedic, mystical writing, I guess, it's called Mist American Dreams. Um,
Mm, such a
that
good
yeah, thanks. You can if you just drop in a line there, I can add you to the list. And I also perform locally in New York City. And then if you want to do a somatic session or any kind of session with me, I think that's also the best way to just contact me through my website. Or you can, I mean, my Instagram is the_clown witch. So you can follow, but I've been so like not trying to be on social media. So that might feel a little crickety if you go there.
Okay, people can have the option. They can try both, but I'm gonna get signed up for Miss American Dream. So
Yeah.
can I? Shall I just message you about that, or can I?
Yeah, you can just send me your email. I think I
Okay.
have your email.
Yeah, you should send it to me now. Okay. Well, we can continue to chat off air, but I'll let us say goodbye to everyone listening. So thank you so much for joining. It's been so amazing.
Thank you. Bye.